Got it.
Action. Okay, grade ones, who can remember? I'll show you a picture and see if you can remember what was happening last time we read.
Yeah.
Okay, Jackson, what was happening?
He's giving them, he became friends with the mouse.
Okay, did he yet, or is that what we predict? We predict he's going to become friends with the mouse. Why did we think he's going to become friends with the mouse? What was the clue that made us think that, Ethan?
He was trapping all the traps.
He was snapping all the traps.
And
Mikhail, how did he snap those traps?
with the pencil.
With the pencil crayons, you're right. He gave up his fancy coloring pencils and he broke them all so that we think he can save Cheeks from getting snapped in a trap. And our next chapter is called Jason and Cheeks. Okay, chapter 5. Jason didn't tell his parents about spraying the traps. He was afraid his parents just wouldn't understand. But he liked that funny little fellow with the big ears and the bright eyes, and he wanted to see him again. Who is the funny little fellow with the big ears and bright eyes? Cheeks, right? Does he know that Cheeks is named Cheeks yet?
No.
No, they haven't actually met. They just looked at each other, right? While they were all washing the dishes, Jason saw Cheeks sitting high above them. Cheeks was washing too. He carefully washed his paws and his fur with his tiny little, he carefully washed his face and his fur with his tiny little paws. Have you ever seen a cat wash? They lick their paw and then they rub it, right?
Yeah.
That's what he is doing too. He's licking his tiny little mouse paw and then he's rubbing it. So please.
That's not how my cat thinks itself.
Bedtime. Quinn, you have to raise your hand, right? Bedtime, Jason, his mother said. And she tucked Jason in his sleeping bag near the stove and put the flashlight beside his pillow. I hope everybody's being a very good listener with their eyes. I'm going to go back and reread. I need you to get a picture of this in your brain. Okay? She tucked Jason into his sleeping bag near the stove, like the wood stove, and put the flashlight beside his pillow. Now remember, in this cabin there's no light switches. They can't just turn the lights on because the lights don't work. There's no electricity. So they have a flashlight that they're going to use at nighttime, or maybe a lantern. So here is the picture you should have in your brain. There he is, tucked in.
Make it a little darker.
So it's all dark in there right now. How would you be feeling? Reagan, can you move? How would you be feeling if you were sitting in a cabin and it was all dark?
Ew.
Would you be a little spooked?
No.
I would be.
My
Jason's mother and father carried the lantern up to the loft. So Jason's mom and dad. Jason sleeps on the main floor. Good for you, Mikhail, if you're tuning into interesting word, loft. The main floor is where like the living room and kitchen is, and the loft is like the upstairs. But instead of having steps to get to it, they just have a ladder. So it's the upstairs of the house, but it just has a ladder. Jason could see light through the cracks in the floor, and then their parents turned the light off. Now everything was black. Cheeks could see in the dark. He ran to the table to look for more crumbs. Jason was too scared to move. He didn't like the dark, and he could hear tiny little scratchy sounds over by the table. What is he hearing?
The mouse.
The mouse. It must be that mouse, he thought. Jason hoped the mouse wouldn't run over top of his sleeping bag. What if it even ran right over his face in the dark?
Yeah.
How would you feel if you had a mouse run over your face in the dark?
No.
Cheeks couldn't find anything to eat. But he could smell fresh water in the pail, and he was thirsty. He scrambled up the side of the pail and teetered on the edge. Do you know what a teeter-totter is?
No.
Put your hand like a teeter-totter. Okay? It goes back and forth, right? So Cheeks is teetering on the edge of the pail. He's kind of like trying to balance on the edge of this pail that's full of water. Cheeks couldn't find anything to eat, but he could still smell fresh water in the pail, and he was thirsty. He scrambled up the pail and teetered on the edge. Suddenly, Jason heard a tiny splash. What could that be, he wondered. He listened really hard. And Laura, what do you think the tiny splash was?
The mouse.
Okay, what happened? He fell in. Cheeks was swimming madly round and round the pail. The sides were too slippery for him to climb. He was trapped inside the water. Help, he squeaked. Help, I'm drowning. Jason could hear the tiny cry for help, but he was too scared to move. Then he remembered the pail on the table. Oh, the crazy little mouse must have fallen in. By now, Cheeks was getting tired of swimming. His little legs moved slower and slower. Help, he squeaked one more time. And then he started to sink. What's happening?
He can't breathe.
He can't breathe. He's drowning. He can. Then he started to sink. Jason was scared, but he had to help. He dug for his flashlight. Where was it? Where was it? Finally, he felt the cool metal under his hand, and he fumbled for the button. At last, a beam of light shot out into the darkness. Jason scrambled out of his bed and across the cold floor. He shone the light on the pail. There was something at the bottom. Jason was sure he was too scared to reach in there. Would you reach in?
No!
He was too scared to reach in there, but suddenly the dark shape struggled back up to the surface. Cheeks gave one last tiny squeak for Jason reached his hand in and scooped out the wet, furry mouse. He could feel Cheeks' tiny heart beating. He heard a very tiny cough.
Oh, thank you, Choke Cheeks. I thought I was a goner. Now, could you put me down? You're squeezing me a little too hard.
He thought I was a goner. What did Cheeks think? That he was going to
Die.
I thought I was a goner. Now, could you put me down? You're squeezing me just a little too tight.
Just a minute, said Jason, and he told the wriggling mouse. Will you run away if I put you down?
Well, why shouldn't I? Asked Cheeks.
Because I just saved your life, said Jason.
Oh, all right, I won't, said Cheeks. But turn off that flashlight. Your parents are gonna wake up.
Jason carried Cheeks over to his sleeping bag. Promise not to run over my face if I get in and turn out the light?
Ugh, of course I wouldn't run over your face, shivered Cheeks.
The light went out. It was black dark again. Jason couldn't see Cheeks, but the mouse could see him. "You're cold," said Jason. "I can feel you shivering. Let me wrap my sock around you." And he tried to dry Cheeks off with his sock, and then he wrapped it around the mouse. The sock is like a mouse sleeping. I didn't know that mice could talk, said Jason when Cheeks' teeth had stopped chattering.
Well, I didn't know that boys could hear so well, said Cheeks.
"I was listening really hard," said Jason. "I was listening so hard my ears were like prickling." "That's what my ears feel like when I'm listening for an enemy," said Cheeks. "Like they're standing up on end." Do you think they're going to become friends?
Yeah.
Here's the last line. I want you to think about the last line of this chapter is going to make you think about something. "That's what my ears feel like when I'm listening for an enemy," said Cheeks. "Like they're standing up on end." Who does that make you think about when you said Slinker? Grade 1. That's chapter 5, but look what chapter 6 is called. Slinker's Song. And it starts out with